Okay, Shane Chunning here. We're going to do another review. This one's going to be on the new Prime Centergy line. They have three different models in the Centergy line. They got the Centergy Air, the Centergy itself, and then they also have the Centergy Hybrid. This one here is the Centergy. It's a 33-inch axle-to-axle bow. This year they came out with their new Trk Cams, draw length specific cams from 24 inches to 31 inches. Probably the first thing that you're going to notice when you take these out of the box is you got a larger cam up top and the smaller cam on the bottom. Everybody's going to wonder what's going on with that. Well, what they did is they ended up raising the grip to make that the center of the bow itself. So the balance is actually center of pivot point at the grip. But to maintain clean vertical knock travel, they had to change the makeup and take out of the cam tracks. So by doing that, they went to a smaller cam at the bottom, larger one up top to give you clean vertical knock travel throughout the entire range of the draw cycle. So they got the balance. They also have the swerve of the riser down below. The swerve actually helps on the hold on target as well. This bow out of the box holds extremely well, even without a stabilizer, nothing on it. So some of the technology they put into this is really showing when you actually hold on target and you're looking at your pin down range. We're gonna go over a few things, the setup process, the tune in general, how to get these cams to work, what reference points to use on the cams, and so forth, and we'll talk about that a little bit later here. On these cams, when you get this bow out of the box, there's gonna be a reference point, and that word right there is sync, basically your cam sync, cam timing. Those are actually used as a reference point straight from the factory. And you'll see two dots in the middle of that circle. Those are actually, they're gonna be fairly close to lining up with the top edge of the limb. And that's gonna be the same on the top cam and the bottom cam for reference points. And we'll talk about more later on fine-tuning vertical knock travel and where they might land up after we start doing that. Okay, we're back again. We looked at cam sync, what it was looking at, reference points right out of the box. Those are usually, they have been all the bows that I've seen come in. Those are pretty much right on the money right out of the box. Now that reference point, as it's in the rest position, brace height position, meaning not drawing the bow. So those are just reference points while the cams are not in rotation. Now we're going to look at knock height. Knock height basically being your knocking point itself on the aim string and your rest height position itself. First, we're going to start this bow at roughly knock level, maybe a tad high just to start. We're going to go ahead and start that at knock level. Also, center shot. Center shot, we're going to do that I'm going to run that and start at 7/8. Now what I'm seeing on this bow, if you were to take a flat straight edge and put it up against the riser itself and run that against the riser, 7/8 of an inch would be pretty much parallel with your riser. So I'm going to try to keep this tune in check and keep everything straight down the center as the bow riser itself is machined. So I'm going to start on this particular bow, my center shot at 7/8 of an inch. And we'll see what kind of adjustments we got to start and work from there. Cam wise itself, usually you only have one cam itself. This here, you're going to see two cams sandwiched between one another, and your draw length mod is sandwiched in between the two cams itself. But what they're doing between the flex system, the cam itself, throughout the draw cycle, your cams usually have lateral movement. So to eliminate that lateral movement and have better knock travel throughout the range of draw lengths and throughout the draw cycle itself, they've come up with their parallel cam system. And what that does is eliminate just about anything that has to do with a cable guard or a flex cable guard, anything that pulls your cables to the side, that's going to want to create lateral movement during the draw cycle. But by doing this, they've literally just about all but eliminated the lateral lean during the draw cycle on these cams. Okay, here we covered basically the rundown of basically setup, cam sync basically positioning out of the box, your knock height itself being aim string plumb, and your arrow level as a good starting point, 7/8 off the riser. We've covered the cam system in general, the parallel cam system and the new Trk Cams. We also, one thing I left out was basically your draw stops. With this bow, you actually have the option to stop on the cable itself with your cable stops, or you can actually put the limb stops on and have even a harder wall and incorporate the limb stops. Personally, for me, I find the cable stops actually better, and I find better consistency from left to right when it comes to fine tuning with bare shafts. But either way, that's just personal preference, but you do have two options. And we'll get to shooting, we'll get to the fine tuning process, figure out what the bow likes, what the bow doesn't like, and the reaction that the bare shafts are making in the target, and the correct adjustments to get it to tune properly and get clean bare shafts results downrange. Okay, we basically gave a rundown of a pre-setup positioning, tune settings, and so forth to get this bow started and get into the fine-tuning process of shooting downrange. Now, I personally prefer bare shaft tuning. It's pretty much the only, I've tuned tons of different methods over the years, but this to me, it shows you every flaw of the bow itself. It'll show you your form flaws, everything. So it's just the method over the years that I prefer. And I find the best long range groups, downrange groups, tune in general. Once you're shooting your field points to your broadheads, all that stuff comes together and you don't have to make tons of adjustments if this goes right. So we're gonna shoot a fletched arrow. I'm gonna start up close, shoot a fletched arrow here, about, I don't know, about 3 yards or so away, 4 yards away. I'm gonna shoot a bare shaft as well. Now, obviously this close, I'm not even gonna aim at the same spot. I just basically am looking for point of entry with the bare shaft and how the tail is reacting on the bare shaft into the target versus the fletched shaft. And I'll show you that right here. Okay, let's look at those. Okay, as you can see, we were at basically 3 yards, real close, 3-4 yards of the target. But again, all I'm looking for is point of entry and how close I am to start my tune process. So preliminary tune settings, actually looking pretty good at 3 yards and 4 yards. Entry of the fletched shaft, entry of the bare shaft, everything's actually running true into the target right now. The bare shaft isn't tail right or it isn't tail left. Entry's pretty true with the fletched. So we're gonna gradually go back. I'll probably go back to about 10 yards and we'll see what we look like there. Okay, here we're back again. We shot that close up starting at 3-4 yards. We're back maybe at about 7-8 yards now, not quite even at 10, I bet. But we're gonna, again, shoot the bare shaft first into the target. Then I'm gonna go ahead and shoot the fletched shaft after that. And we're gonna basically look what entry's looking like. Observe basically the entry of the bare shaft, tail left, tail right, tail up, tail down, and we'll keep going back. And basically we're going to take this all the way back to 20 yards and do the fine tuning process from there. Okay, let's go look at those two. Okay, here we're back at about 7 or 8 yards. You can see here's my fletched shaft, here's my bare shaft. I'm starting to show a little bit of a tail right on entry. I'm not sure, that could be me. The tail right could be me as far as my grip, but to exaggerate that, I'm gonna move back a little bit farther and see if we need to make any adjustments. But as you can see right now, something's showing up. It's gonna show up more and get more and more involved the farther we go back to 20 yards. So we'll do another shot and probably drop back to 10, 12 yards and see what happens. Okay, that last shot there, entry on target, I was starting to drift a little bit with my tail on my bare shaft, but I wanted to still go back a little bit farther. Right now we're probably sitting about 12 yards. I'm gonna shoot the fletched arrow on the bare shaft again. We'll see what we're looking like entry-wise and see if that starts to exaggerate a little bit more before we decide what type of adjustments we need to make. Okay, let's go look at those. Okay, we dropped back to about, I don't know, 12 yards or so, 13 yards. And as you can see, I was wondering from the last one, we hit this blue nail top with the bare shaft, so I was wondering if that had any deflection on entry. And again, we're only looking at entry. I'm not aiming at the same exact spot. As you can see with this one here, that tail low is showing up. So I'm quite a bit tail low compared to my fletch shaft right now. My knock height is knock level. So there's two ways to adjust that. One is going to be your knock height adjustment, and to adjust the tail low with the bare shaft, you're going to have to lower your rest. So then you'd end up in instead of a knock level position, you'd end up being knock high. Another way would be rotation in your cams. So what we could do is have the top cam hitting ahead at full draw before the bottom cam, and then that also could correct that. So it might be a combination of the two, but we'll drop back. I'll go to the boat press, make a couple adjustments, explain those as well, and then we'll shoot it again at 13 yards and see what we got. Okay, here we're back at the press and the vise, and we're going to go ahead and start. We're going to leave cam sync the way it is set, but as you can see, we're knock level right now still. I'm going to change this to an 1/8 inch knock high and see if we can correct the entry with that bare shaft downrange. So I'm going to adjust that now, and then we'll go back to shooting and see the results. Okay, we're back after that adjustment. What we did is we changed the rest height, or the knock height in general, adjusted the rest down lower, so now we're sitting at a 1/16 inch knock high instead of knock level. Now if that doesn't make an adjustment and it still looks the same, then we know we got to correct that probably out of our cam sync. It's a combination of both. You can't get one, say knock height, or you can't just solely use your cam sync to change that tail low, bare shaft high condition. So it's a balance of both of those that have to take place to give you the results, perfect results you're looking for with the true bare shaft flight. So we'll see what we're looking like now downrange. Okay, let's go look at those. Okay, as you can see, we're back at about, I don't know, 13 or so, actually about 14 yards. And we're following up on that rest adjustment. So what we did is we ended up moving our knock height, lowering our rest, which in turn lowers or changes our knock height. And we ended up being about a 1/16 knock high instead of knock level, trying to fix this tail low, as you can see right now. So my entrance is really good, obviously with the fletch, because you got something guiding the arrow itself. But when you really want to fine tune and you're looking at the bare shafts, you can see the tail low happening. So we're going to still try to fix that. We'll show you a side cut and the difference and the adjustments that we're going to make to fix that. Okay, as you can see from that last shot at, I don't know, 13 yards or so, 14 yards, but in any case, we're still having that tail low effect with the bare shaft. We want to get rid of that. We tried making a rest adjustment, and now we're sitting at a 1/16 inch knock high. I'm going to leave the rest adjustment there, leave that at a 1/16, just because it, honestly, from the last time, from making that last adjustment, doesn't seem like it changed anything. So that tells me you hit a roadblock, that adjustment doesn't show up much at all. So I'm going to go to cam sync and change that. I'm going to go ahead and take this cable here. I'm going to add some twists. Probably I'm going to start with 2 full twists in this cable, and we're going to see what that does. But what that's going to do at full draw, it's going to change. I have the cable stops in right now, but at full draw, you're going to have one stop hitting before the other. So after I make these adjustments, we're going to have to re-situate one of the cable stops so they're both hitting at the same time, because that's going to throw your cam sync off. Okay, as you can see now, that cam sync reference point at brace, meaning the bow at rest, not in full draw position, I'm completely burying now those 2 dot references. So that is basically over rotating the cam in the brace position, and so that's going to change what it does on the back end as well. So I'm going to put this in the draw board. We're going to see what our stops are doing now. Before they were hitting at the same time, this is going to throw that off, and we'll make that adjustment accordingly and then see what our results are downrange. Okay, as you can see right here, we got our cable stop. See the gap between the cable stop and the cable itself. And then down on this one, on our lower cam, the cable stop is actually hitting the cable right now. Prior to this, they were hitting at the same time, but by making this adjustment, adding the 2 full twists in the cables, trying to change cam sync to get that tail low effect out of the bare shaft, I now have to actually adjust the cable stop. And by doing that, just come underneath while the bow's in the drawboard, back that off, slide it so they're hitting hard, and now we have both cable stops hitting at the same time. I'll pull the bow out of the drawboard and we'll see what kind of results we get downrange. Okay, we're going to take a look at the changes that we just made. Right now, we chose to basically change cam sync in general. We also changed the knock height. I'm at a 1/16 inch knock high. You cannot see the basically our dots, reference points you might say, in that circle on that sync mark that is stamped and impression wise in the cams. That's actually buried, so you can't see that now. Generally, when it comes from the factory, you're going to be able to see both of those, and they're going to be pretty much right in line with the limb, top of the limb and the bottom of the limb. So we threw that off, added 2 twists to the cable, made a few adjustments. We're going to see what that looks like downrange and see if that's actually moving in the right direction to straighten out our tail low that we're getting with the bare shaft. Okay, let's go look at those. Okay, here you can see I'm showing up a little bit of a tail right on the bare shaft. I'm not really too concerned with that just because we've been really consistent on that. Entry has been true from that point of view. And that's probably grip. That was probably just me, so I'm not going to make any adjustments for that. So we're going to look at this. We'll look at a side cut right now, and you can see how the tail low has gotten closer, and we're closing that gap a little bit more. And we'll make another adjustment. I'm probably going to choose to do a little of both. I'm probably going to change my knock height to go an 1/8 inch knock high, and also add probably 2 more twists in the cable. Okay, we're back at the bow press. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more twists to the cable here, and also going to choose an opt to go an 1/8 inch knock high and the rest. So we're going to have to make a rest adjustment as well. Just by judging that, being familiar with the bows and the cam systems, I think it's going to take a little bit of both to get us where we need to be. So we'll do that right now, and we'll look at the results. Okay, as you can see, it changes the cable stop again. This one here at the bottom cam is just slightly off the cable right now. We got a fairly decent gap because we added those 2 full twists in that cable. So now we're going to readjust basically our cable stop and get those hitting at the same time. Okay, now as you can see here, we're in that sync, that impression that they made in the top cam. We're completely buried now, and you can't even really see the hole or the dots as a reference point. The bottom cam is actually still looking good. Dots, and you're about dead center of the hole, and that's where the dots are at. So that's how much difference from top to bottom. Currently trying to get the tail low out of the bare shafts. We'll see what we look like. Okay, we're back. What we did is we made a few more adjustments, added 2 more twists to the cable. We also changed the knock height, trying to find that good balance between one and another so we can get clean entry with the bare shafts downrange. So we're going to give that a shot. We also adjusted our cable stops as well, so those are hitting at the same time, just because anytime you change cam sync, you want to go back to the drawboard and adjust those cable stops so they're hitting at the same time. And let's see what we look like. Okay, let's go look at those. Okay, as you can see, back at 15 yards, we end up, after the adjustments to basically cam sync and some rest height adjustment, so took a combination of both to get us leveled out here with our bare shaft. Right now, entry is running very true. We're going to do another side cut. You'll see how true that entry is as well. I'm not aiming at the same spot. I don't want any deflection off my bare shaft from my fletched arrow, so I'm actually just aiming off from one to the other and only looking at entry. But when you can get a bare shaft that true on entry with your fletched, down the road, broadheads, all that stuff will all come together really nice, and you won't be messing around with your broadheads come hunting season. Okay, we just got done with that last clip at 15 yards. 15 to 20, with that true entry at 15 like that, I'm not really worried about 20. Everything's coming together really well. Now what we did, it ended up taking a combination of both our knock height position and cam rotation change to get that tail low out of those bare shafts, and entry perfect with the fletched arrows. Now, right now we're sitting at an 1/8 inch knock high. Basically more of a counterclockwise rotation at brace on the top cam. The factory settings in the sync position are completely buried into the limb itself, behind the limb, so you can't actually physically see those. Now granted, I know those come out and they're supposed to be right on out of the money out of the factory, but as you can see downrange with the bare shaft results, factory settings aren't always like that. I don't know any factory that actually tests with bare shafts and tries to get clean flight like that. So this is just fine tuning. If you really want to fine tune your bow and get it dialed in just right so you have way less problems with your broadheads down the road, this is the way to do it. Hopefully this helps and gives you a basic rundown of the new Prime Centergy.